What's up, my beautiful people, and welcome back to Sosa's Book Club, where your imagination can run wild in between the pages. We will continue reading the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tale series, and the story we are on today is Fitcher's Bird. Now, viewer discretion, if you do hear a lot of noise going on in the background, that is my cats running around, playing and having a wonderful time. So, grab your little snacks, your little drinks, and get comfortable for our lovely short story time. Ready? There was once a wizard who used to take the form of a poor man and went to houses and begged and called pretty girls. No one knew whether he carried them, for they were never seen more. One day he appeared before the door of a man who had 3 pretty daughters. He looked like a poor weak beggar and carried a basket on his back as if he meant to collect charitable gifts in it. He begged for a little food, and when the eldest daughter came out and was just reaching him a piece of bread, he did not but touch her, and she was forced to jump into his basket. Thereupon he hurried away with the long strides and carried her away into the dark forest to his house, which stood in the midst of it. Everything in the house was magnificent. He gave her whatsoever she could possibly desire, and said, "My darling, thou wilt certainly be happy with me, for thou hast everything thy heart can wish for." This lasted a few days, and then he said, "I must journey forth and leave thee alone for a short time. There are the keys of the house. Thou may go everywhere and look everything except into one room, which this little key here opens, that there I forbid thee to go on in pain of death." He likewise gave her an egg and said, "Preserve the egg carefully for me, and carry it continually about with thee, for a great misfortune would arise from loss of it." She took the keys and the egg and promised to obey him in everything. When he was gone, she went all around the house from the bottom to the top and examined everything. The rooms shone with silver and gold, and she thought that she had never seen such great splendor. At length she came to the forbidden door. She wished to pass it, but curiosity let her have no rest. She examined the key, and it looked just like any other. She put it in the keyhole and turned it a little, and the door sprang open. But what did she see when she went in? A great bloody basin stood in the middle of the room, and therein lay human beings, dead and hewn to pieces. And hard but was by a block of wood, and a gleaming axe lay upon it. She was so terribly alarmed that the egg which she held in her hand fell into the basin. She got it out and washed the blood off, but in vain. It appeared again in a moment. She washed and scrubbed, but she could not get it off. It was not long before the man came back from his journey, and the first thing which he asked for were the key and the egg. She gave them to him, but she trembled as she did so, and he saw at once by the red spots that she had been in the bloody chamber. "Since thou hast gone in the room against my will," said he, "thou shalt go back into it against thine own. Thy life is ended." He threw her down, dragged her by the tither of her hair, cut her head off on the block, and hewed her in pieces so that her blood ran on the ground. Then he threw her into the basin with the rest. "Now I will fetch myself the second," said the wizard, and again he went to the house in the shape of a poor man and begged. Then the second daughter brought him a piece of bread. He caught her like the first by simply touching her and carried her away. She not fared better than her sister. She allowed herself to be laid away by her curiosity, opened the door in the bloody chamber, looked in, and had to atone for it with her life on the wizard's return. Then he went and brought the third sister, but she was clever and crafty. When he had given her the keys and the egg and left her, she first put the egg away with great care, and then she examined the house, and at last went into the forbidden room. At last what did she behold? Both her sisters lay there in the basin, cruelly murdered and cut in pieces. But she began to gather their limbs together and put them in order, head, body, arms, and legs. And when nothing further was wanting, the limbs began to move and unite themselves together, and both maidens appeared to open their eyes and were once more alive. Then they rejoiced and kissed and caressed each other. On his arrival, the man once demanded the keys and the egg, and as he could perceive no trace of any blood on it, he said, "Thou hast stood the test, and thou shalt be my bride." He now had no longer any power over her, and was forced to do whatever she desired. "Oh, very well," said she. "Thou first take a basket full of gold to my father and mother, and carry it thyself on thy back. In the meantime, I will prepare the wedding." Then she ran to her sisters, whom she had hidden in the little chamber, and said, "The moment has come when I save you. The wretch shall himself carry you home again, but as soon as you are at home, send help to me." She put both of them in the basket and covered them quite over with gold, so that nothing of them was to be seen. Then she called in the wizard and said to him, "Now carry the basket away, but I shall look through my little window and watch to see if thou stoppest on the way to stand or to rest." The wizard raised to the basket on his back and went away with it, but it weighed him down so heavily that the perception streamed from his per, sorry, that perspiration streamed from his face. Then he sat down and wanted to rest a while, but immediately one of the girls in the basket cried, "I am looking through my little window, and I said thou art resting. Will thou go at once?" He thought it was the bride who was calling it to him, and got up on his legs again. Once more he was going to sit down, but instantly she cried, "I am looking through my little window, and I see thou art resting. Will thou go on directly?" And whenever he stood still, she cried this, and then he was forced to go onwards, until the last groaning out of breath. He took the basket with the gold and the two maidens into their parents' house. At home, however, the bride prepared the marriage feast, and sent invitations to the friends of the wizard. Then she took the skull with grinding teeth, put some ornaments on it and a wreath of flowers, carried it upstairs to the garret window, and let him look out from the fence. When all was ready, she got into the barrel of honey, and then cut the feather bed open and rolled herself in it until she looked like a wondrous bird, and no one could recognize her. She then went out of the house, and on her way she met some of the wedding guests, who asked, "O Fitcher's bird, how comest thou here?" "I come from Fitcher's house quite near." "And what may the young bride be doing?" "From the cellar to garret she swept all clean, and now from the window she's peeping, I ween." At last she met the bridegroom, who was coming slowly back. He, like the others, asked, "O Fetcher's bird, how come thou here?" "I come from Fetcher's house quite near." "And what may young bride be doing?" "From cellar to garret she swept all clean, and now from the window she's peeping, I ween." The bridegroom looked up, saw the decked out skull, thought it was his bride, and nodded to her. Greeting to her kindly, he asked his guests all had gone into the house, and the brother and kinsman of the bride, who had been seen to rescue her, arrived. They locked all the doors of the house that no one might escape, so set fire to it, and the wizard and all of his crew had to burn. The end. Next week's story will be The Robber Bride Grimm, on the lovely adventures of the Grimm brothers story time. Thank you for joining the lovely short stories as we continue our lovely adventures along with the Grimm brothers and I. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys next week.